It's
Mm-hmm.
the fruit, I think, that's involved in the arc where Ezra and um, Big Pink Dude,
Zeb.
thank
Yeah,
you,
Zeb. Mm-hmm.
Ezra and Zeb take a TIE fighter.
Welcome back to the R&S Podcast. This week, the R stands for Rudolph and the S stands for Santa. Rudolph, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty well. I am excited to pull your sleigh soon, Santa.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, bud.
my
It's your
bright red
job.
nose.
It's your job, or we send you to the glue factory.
Well,
Is that
I'm excited. I think horses are made for glue.
reindeers and horses are pretty similar. Just one's got antlers, I guess.
Yeah.
So, as many of you are aware, a couple days ago, Chapter 16 of The Mandalorian, aka the Season 2 finale, entitled The Rescue, aired. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. But before we get started, just one logistical note. So, we're going to have this episode air, episode 5. Have we really done this 5 times now?
4 times, but we had this is our 5th episode.
5th episode, and we recorded 2 in one sitting.
Yeah.
So we have this episode airing, and then next week for our last episode, I believe, of 2020, we are going to be talking about The Mandalorian as a show, like as a whole, where we are going to be talking about what we liked about the episodes. We're also going to give our rankings for the episodes as well. And then for the first episode of 2021, I'm not going to say what it is yet, but it's something I'm a little excited for.
Yeah, same. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So, yeah, should we just go ahead and start talking about what we thought of the episode?
I think, we can just dive right in.
All right, you go first.
Oh, man. I did not know exactly what to expect with this episode, similarly to how episode 6 kind of took me off guard. Of course, we knew, we were going to see, like, the final showdown, at least for this season, between Din and Gideon. We were going to see, the spear get used. We were going to see more of the Dark Troopers, probably, because we're trying to go see Gideon. But we weren't sure exactly what would happen directly. As you heard at the end of our last episode, we weren't even sure exactly who would be joining in the heist, I guess, the rescue itself. So yeah, I was really excited to see that it was just on the light cruiser itself, because judging by the location of the ship, we could have possibly seen it on like Nar Shaddaa or on Kamino or something in the area. But no, we just saw it on the light cruiser because we were able to sneak in there ourselves, I actually really liked that it opened with them just on the tail of the Lambda class ship and Dr. Pershing. I thought that was cool. That also actually confirmed that he is a cloning engineer, even though we kind of already knew by his Kaminoan patch. But yeah, it was a great setup. It was like absolutely classic Star Wars, because it's got tricking the enemy into getting onto their ship or into their area. It had TIE fighters, it had Slave One, it had Luke Skywalker, it had an X-Wing, like absolutely classic Star Wars. I could go on for a while, but it's like one of the most classic episodes we've had, I think.
So, I am not going to say I didn't like the episode. I really liked the episode. I thought it was a good season 2 finale. But I had some problems with this episode. Just some minor ones. Again, like I thought it was a great episode. I loved the moments of it. But there was just some that I wasn't particularly fond of. Before we talk about the episode, I was kind of surprised to find out Peyton Reed was directing this episode. I'm pretty sure that he was the only 2-episode director this season. I think they had someone for each one.
I think so. And also, I remember seeing some controversy because the other episode that Peyton Reed directed this season was The Passenger, which many say is the worst episode of Mandalorian because it's so kind of obviously a filler episode.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, when you sent it to me, I responded with interesting, because it was like, so the person who directed the one like absolutely pure filler episode will be directing the finale. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that Peyton Reed's a bad director. He's a great director. He's been working with Ant-Man for a while. He's he's going to be directing Ant-Man 3 in the future. But it's just weird that what he did, like the content he was given, seemed to not stack up to him directing the finale. And I saw a lot of controversy online about like, well, why is he directing and not like Filoni or not Favreau or not anyone else?
Yeah. So I had some little problems with this episode, and like we'll get to them further in the episode, or as we go through our episode recap. I some of my problems were I thought a lot of what happened in the episode was the easy, like it was the easy way done. I thought a lot of the episode was kind of expected. Like there wasn't really anything in this episode that surprised me for the most part. And that's even including Luke Skywalker. And
No, yeah,
we'll get to Luke later in the episode. I don't want to dive in too deep. Again, I enjoyed the episode. I really liked the action. I really loved, like, some of my favorite action in this episode involved Fennec Shan. Like I can't stop talking about her. She's one of, like, my favorite badass characters that's been
oh yeah,
introduced from The Mandalorian, and I'm excited to see her in Boba Fett. Well, actually, yeah, the only thing that really surprised me was that post-credit scene, which again we'll get to.
yeah.
I'm excited that she's in Bad Batch. I'm so excited that they were able to attach Ming Na Wen into it.
Yeah,
Uh,
just her whole character I'm so happy with. I'm really happy that they brought her back from just like some throwaway bounty hunter in season 1, and now she's like a Star Wars character. Like she's
yeah,
in 2 seasons of The Mandalorian and being bridged out farther, seeing like why she's wanted by the ISB in Bad Batch. So it's gonna be great.
again, I'll keep saying it. I thought it was a really good episode, but I had some issues with it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned before, the episode opens with Slave One chasing down a Lambda shuttle, which I immediately thought of that joke from Rebels back in season 2. I think the episode was called Stealth Mission, where Rex and Kanan have to sneak aboard an Imperial Star Destroyer and rescue Commander Sato and Ezra. And a Lambda shuttle parks at Rebels or at Rebel Command or whatever. And they're just like, how does the Empire keep letting us steal these? And
Yeah.
Rex is just like, oh, I thought this was the one we already have. Like, it's really funny that they keep stealing their ships, but
Yeah, and also a little bit later, there's actually a Rebels reference that I'll talk about when we get to it. But I thought it was cool.
oh, okay. So, anyways, the Slave One chases down a Lambda shuttle, disables it. Din and Cara Dune board the ship. They capture Dr. Pershing. There's one co-pilot that's obviously just like, I don't even want to be here. And another one's just like, oh yeah, we blew up Alderaan. Small price to pay to stop some terrorists. Both co-pilots die. I I was a little conflicted with this scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because it's a fun scene, get a little action at the beginning, get to see them steal a Lambda shuttle. But I'm just like, why exactly do you need like first of all, how did they find Dr. Pershing if it was so hard to find Moff Gideon? Why did they need they got Dr. Pershing to get some information about Moff Gideon's cruiser? But at the same time, most of the intel they got from him, they already knew. They knew,
Yeah.
okay, he's gonna have dark troopers. The ship isn't at full capacity because the Empire's dead. And so basically we had the scene where we get an Imperial to rub it into Cara Dune's face that he was there when they blew up Alderaan. And they got the ship, which it could have been a really quick scene. And again, they got Dr. Pershing and found out nothing about Pershing's project with Grogu. Whatever Pershing was doing, we still don't really, all we know from it was what we found out earlier this season. And Gideon later was just like, I have his blood. I'm done with the kid. So it kind of felt like a little useless to go get Pershing and do nothing with the character for the most part.
Yeah, no, I thought the initial scene with the pilot was useful because it kind of shows the philosophical ideas we were introduced to last episode in action, quote unquote, where he calls the rebellion terrorists because he's on the side of the Empire, and when you have a smaller group of people who begin to threaten your rule, that's kind of terrorists. Now, of course, he's obviously, a sleazebag as he's just talking like, we blew up Alderaan, haha, which that could also show, yes, while, it's heroes and villains on both sides, the Empire still doesn't have a lot of good people in it, at least from our standpoint. He shot his own comrade just because he was like, no, I don't know about this right now. But yeah, I mean, I think it showed some of the ideas from episode 7 kind of being put in action. The scene where they have Pershing, though, I thought that scene was valuable because it showed that Pershing was dedicated to his work, but not so dedicated that he was like dedicated to the Empire instead. Like he was shown not entirely vibing with the plans of the client or Moff Gideon. When they were like, "Well, he could be dead if he needs to be." Pershing was like, "No, he needs to be. We want him alive." Even though they were going for his blood, Pershing did not want to kill the kid, and it seemed to me like that finally kind of snapped, and where even though he wasn't maybe like super duper like down with vibing with Mando and crew, down with like giving them all the information, it was, well, you can give us information, or we could, throw you out the airlock, something like that. So regardless, it was showing that like that Mando and crew kind of had a plan going forward. They were strong enough to be able to get Pershing and convince him to give them more information. So they kind of seemed like a force to be reckoned with against, a Moff from the Empire versus a few of the Mandalorians and everything. But yeah, I still am not sure exactly how much information was super valuable to them besides like the Dark Troopers have a 2-minute warm-up time. This is where these are the schematics of the ship. It wasn't clear if they got the ship schematics, specifically his light cruiser schematics, from Pershing, or just if they had them. I'm still, like they don't mention how they begin to track Pershing. Now they know the location of the light cruiser. They could have been just kind of sitting and waiting until they heard the Lambda class and begin to follow it. But yeah, that may have been part of their plan originally, to try to grab an Imperial ship, to sneak onto the ship with it, or to get close enough undetected. But yeah, I mean, that information wasn't given, but also Star Wars is Star Wars. We've been able to enjoy this kind of stuff in the past without much information, and I think that I would love to get the information to know, like, well, how do they find Pershing? What does Pershing offer for the table? What these questions we've just been posing. But it doesn't pull away from the fact that Star Wars is for all ages, and so these action sequences is just like, oh, cool, awesome action sequence, and just like awesome flying through space and avoiding TIE fighters and stuff like that. Like, I think the fact that we did not get where Pershing was coming from was just a step in the order to get to like the big awesome set pieces we see in the episode. Of course, we can also go back and eventually find out where Pershing was coming from. It could be mentioned in an interview, or a Mandalorian the novelization, like they did with Rise of Skywalker. So, yeah. But long story short, I thought that those scenes were okay, but I also agree with you that there was some information I wanted to understand more about them.
Yeah, it was also like, again, totally looking into it a little bit too much. Like, seeing like, whatever. There's more important stuff coming down the road. So, with that being said, next scene, they have Dr. Pershing in tow, and they fly to an unknown planet to go pick up Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves. Blanked on her name for a second. Definitely didn't read it off of the Wikipedia page, but glad to see that she's back. The actress 100% lied on Twitter.
Totally lied, yeah.
Yeah, she was just like, yeah, Koska's not showing up again this season. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Something I noticed about the big old like refineries that we saw them fly past, it kind of reminded me of Lothal, where it's like a kind of a plainsy, sort of deserty, not forested, not tree-full planet, with refineries or big machinery, and the logo on them apparently was the pre-Empire like Republic logo. So whatever they are, they're old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly where this is. It might be out in like some like farther than Outer Rim, or somewhere where the Empire's influence wasn't really felt, or was like rebelled against on the planet itself. Because if that's like a Republic logo, then that's 30 plus years old now, something like that. So yeah.
So Din and Boba arrive in a little cantina to get Bo and Koska Reeves, and there's immediately just some hostilities between Bo and Koska versus Boba. Like, there's definitely some jabs at him not being a real Mandalorian, him being a clone, all this stuff. It's quite hilarious, and I'm glad that we get to see this stuff, just because like we can actually see what Boba's going through as someone that was born a clone, not so like not like the rest of them, 100% not Mandalorian by blood. So this is all very interesting. And Din says what he has to. He's just like, they have the kid. we're going after Gideon. We're getting the Darksaber, yada, yada, yada. He's also like, I know you want to retake Mandalore, so we can get the light cruiser and you can keep it. And, Bo's only contingency, like the only thing she cares about, she's like, as soon as you find Gideon, call me. He's mine. I have to deal with it. And of course,
that was like the entire thing that she only said the whole episode was like, yeah, Bo-Katan's coming. But it was just like, Bo-Katan wants Darksaber. Bo-Katan wants Gideon. That's all she cares about. Like, is Bo-Katan in this episode? Cool. She can be replaced with the words Gideon and Darksaber.
Yep. So this is Team Mando. This is what we got.
Yep.
We don't have Grief Karga. We don't have Ahsoka, of course. We don't have Rex or Sabine. I'm still a little sad, but that's all right. They'll save them for the Ahsoka show.
Yeah. And two more things before we leave this planet real quick.
Of course.
One, we get to see for the first time in live action a Mandalorian fighter.
I was so happy to see that.
What's the name of it again?
The Gauntlets.
Thank you. Yeah. Bo-Katan shipped the Gauntlet. And also the Rebels reference, the menu behind them in that scene is all in Aurebesh. But if you translate it, it's kind of just references to different like food throughout Star Wars. Some of them are references to like that like instant biscuit thing that you see in Force Awakens. One that's near the bottom of the menu.
Haroon bread, or however you say it, because I also like as I was reading through this scene on Wikipedia, someone has listed all the translated foods that they have there. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, so the one that I kind of remembered the most was you can get a Meluron there, which is the fruit that you see a lot in Rebels. It's the fruit I think that's involved in the arc where Ezra and Zeb take a TIE fighter. So yeah, I thought it was cool that they threw the Meluron in there.
Of course.
And yeah, everything else is the references to like Force Awakens and like the things that she eats by herself and things she gets from trading in parts, and then also across all of Star Wars. So yeah, always translate your Aurebesh.
Oh yeah. So moving on, we have the scene where they board the cruiser. So they do a classic one that we've seen before. I distinctively remember it in an episode of Rebels where Landa shuttle comes out of hyperspace, Slave One's chasing it. Bo-Katan impersonates an Imperial officer. She's just like, hey, we're being chased. We need a board like right now. So, I mean, they board the light cruiser, which I'm also so happy that we get to see those in live action. I love those
it's
ships.
really cool to see it again.
I'm kind of a shipaholic a little bit. I love like learning about the different ships in Star Wars, and I love seeing them.
Yeah, I want to work up to your level of shipaholicness.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
So anyways, they board the light cruiser. The plan is for or Boba Fett's just, getaway driver again.
Yeah, remember when we were saying we didn't want him to be a getaway driver? That's all he's done is getaway driver twice.
That's okay, because Din's job is to stay behind for a little bit, and then as soon as he can, get to the Dark Trooper lab, lock it down so they can't get out. Meanwhile, the four badass women, Bo-Katan, Koska Reeves, Fennec, and Kara, are going to make their way to the bridge and basically be the distraction.
Yeah.
So we get some awesome fight sequences. So we'll start with the bridge team. So they're just going through the corridors, and I mean, it's just so much fun to see all this crazy stuff in live action. Like, say what you will about Peyton Reed's direction on this episode. The fight sequences were awesome.
Oh yeah,
they were very well done.
Yeah, some of my favorite stuff was like just seeing the stormtroopers just fall out of a ray shield. And like it's kind of subtle, but you can see like as he falls, he accelerates until he hits the ray shield, and then his motion is constant because space, stuff like that. Like the whole them hiding below the bridge and using their jetpack to their advantage to jump up and then just destroy everything. Action is action in Star Wars. It was all really cool. They incorporated story aspects and they're Mandalorians, so they can use all of their tech at their disposal, and it's just great.
Yeah. So then we'll cut to Din on his quest to shut down the Dark Trooper lab, and we fortunately get to see him face off with the Dark Trooper 1v1, which we saw. It's just like, oh yeah, these are as big of a problem as they thought, or as we thought they would be. So it's great to see that fight sequence. And
I love the Terminator 2 style, like catch the door right before it closes.
Yeah. So, and then one of them was on fire, and Din's just like, oh, fire don't work here. And so he ejects them into space, but of course he forgets, oh yeah, there's no living thing in there, and they also have jetpacks so they can fly.
Yeah,
so,
well, like Iron Man rocket boots.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention in the scene where they're like kind of making a game plan with Dr. Pershing, he mentions that these are the third form of Dark Trooper, referencing the fact that they are actually from that video game, the third form, which I'm pretty sure that video game there was version 1 and 2 were droids, and version 3 was the big one with the suit. It was a suit for a stormtrooper to wear. But in Mandalorian, the first two were suits, and the last thing they had to eliminate that was like the main error was the human. And so the third version is an actual full droid. So I think they flipped that around between the game's canon and current actual canon. But still, it's cool to reference the fact that this is the third version of them, just like they were in the games, the big, scary black ones. And also, I love how Din sees them about to exit, and he's like, "Oh no, 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 no!" Like he's screaming, "No!" Runs over and tries to hit it as fast as he can because he knows these are a massive force to be reckoned with.
So moving on from this, Din makes it to the prison cells, finds Grogu, and actually first the bridge team gets to the bridge. They find out, oh, Gideon's not here. Where is he? And Bo's freaking out. She's like, oh god, oh god, oh god.
Mm.
Then we cut to Din getting to Grogu and finding Gideon standing right there with the Darksaber out. So Gideon's just he's basically just hey, I have the child. I've already used him for what I need him for. I got his blood. And Gideon tries to make a little trade here. He's just hey, leave my ship, take the kid. I'm gonna leave. We didn't see each other. Deal? And Mando's just all right, yeah, okay. Turns around, goes to get Grogu, and Gideon begins to attack Din. And Din's got Beskar, so the Darksaber's just kind of bouncing off of it. He starts using the Beskar staff, which I thought for a second it was about to break, but no, it was just a really cool detail that whenever the Beskar spear makes contact with the Darksaber, it heats up a little bit.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to see it actually be able to melt that section of Beskar, because we were never told that Beskar is absolutely fully lightsaber proof. Also, the Darksaber is very different. We've never really seen it against Beskar before. We're not sure how it does. We're not sure if the fact that it's an actual blade, not just a column of plasma, it's an actual blade, how that affects how heat works or how it's resistant to Beskar and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. Also, I didn't realize until I thought about it and watched it a second time, when Gideon says, "Assume I know everything." One of the big things that was kind of implied there is Gideon recognizes Bo-Katan's voice when she's faking being the Lambda class cruiser.
Yeah.
So he lets them in, obviously the TIE fighters, but he allows them to come in afterwards, just because he knows if Bo-Katan is there, and now that Mando has said, or Din has said, he doesn't care about the Darksaber, he knows he can challenge Mando, make Mando take the saber, and further screw over Bo-Katan's plans. He's smarter than he's showing off.
Yeah, and that scene where we find that out is one of my favorite scenes this episode, actually. Besides, a couple of the big reveals at the end.
Yes.
So, anyways, let's get to that. So the duel happens. Din wins, grabs the Darksaber, activates it, escorts Gideon up to the bridge. And then as soon as he walks in like that, we all know. We're like, oh no.
Yeah.
So he walks in. Bo-Katan's just what are you doing? This was my job. He's just well, yeah, beat Gideon. Here he is. And Gideon begins to point out that Mando screwed up. He's just oh, so you don't really know what the Darksaber is all about, huh? So he reveals the Darksaber, which we all know, is used to rule Mandalore and unite Mandalore. And Din's just okay. He's just well, you defeated me.
It's a decent sum up for people who don't want to watch 11 seasons of cartoons.
Yeah. He's just so you defeated me. This is yours now. And he's no, it's Bo's. And Bo's just no, I needed to beat him. He's just okay, here's the Darksaber. And Gideon's it doesn't work like that. She has to beat you. He's okay, I yield. Take the Darksaber. And Bo doesn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where the scene stops, but we'll go back and analyze it a little bit. So in Rebels, Sabine gives Bo-Katan the Darksaber. There's no fight. It just happens.
Yep.
So everyone's just well, what about that? I think what that is telling us, which we don't know, is that Sabine gave Bo the Darksaber, and it didn't unite Mandalore because Bo didn't actually beat Sabine. It was just given to her. So I think maybe that's what happened in Rebels.
Yeah, I think that she needs to earn it for her to think that it will have the power to help her restore Mandalore. But I also think that I mean, it's weird. People were pointing out, why can't she take it now? She took it earlier. Of course, there's a theory of, well, she needs to earn it this time. But also, one, she really doesn't need to earn it this time because she can just say, "I won it from Moff Gideon, and he's in jail now," and then no one has to know the fact that it passed between. There was a middleman there.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too, and I hope that's how it goes. But I know that's not gonna be how it goes because Mandalorians, like, they are stubborn as hell. And
yeah,
yes, she really could just say, "Yeah, I defeated Gideon, and I have the darksaber now." But then she's gonna be like, "But that's not honorable." It's like, okay, so great. Now you have to fight another Mandalorian to take it. Like, yeah, gee, thanks,
yeah, and
Bo-Katan.
also like if the point of her earning the dark saber is for her to restore Mandalore, if she restores Mandalore with Din, if it's under Din with the dark saber, is that still sufficient? If it's not, she did not want the darksaber to restore Mandalore. She wanted the darksaber for her own personal gain and power. In which case, she returns to kind of that more villain style role we've seen her in the past. She was with Death Watch, which was against our idea, like our main protagonist level Mandalorians we see in Clone Wars. So yes, we see her as like kind of like a Mandalorian we get to work with this season. For those who don't know her history, but if she's not okay with Din using the darksaber to unite Mandalore, if her end goal is not the uniting of Mandalore, and her end goal is for her to rule Mandalore, that's not the right reason for you to want the darksaber. It's a reason, but I don't think it's a good one because then you're looking for absolute power, not the reunification of your people. Because she's been pushing this Mandalore idea the whole time. But if she wants to be not the ruler of the planet Mandalore, but Mandalore, like the one with the apostrophe, like the person Mandalore, then that's different. I think if she's looking to be the one true ruler and not just reunification of her people, then she will become the villain of season 3 if we get to see the storyline again. You know what I mean?
hmm
She'll actually want to fight Din, and they won't be able to come to like, oh, well, we can fight, just don't kill me, it'll be fine. She'll be like, no, I don't. There are no rules. Honor, honor, honor. So she might push her own personal power past the idea of her people actually having a planet again and not having it just glassed, like Boba Fett said.
And this is all very interesting, and this is the storyline I've been hoping that we're going to see, and it looks
hmm
like we will be seeing it. So with that being said, let's keep going. Fennec announces that the race shields have been breached, that the Dark Troopers are back, just like we thought.
hmm
And then we see a lone X-wing land on the light cruiser.
Yeah, right as the blast doors are about to be like breached through by just
Mhm.
big, powerful, punchy droid dudes.
Yeah. So, at what point did you know this was Luke Skywalker?
So I am really bad when I'm watching stuff like this. I don't pick up on context clues. I saw the X-wing and my first thought was, the New Republic is here. Like, this is Trapper Wolf. Why? Because we haven't. Those are the only X-wings we've seen in the season. Parks and everything. And then as soon as I saw the hooded figure, I knew it was Luke. But I didn't pick up on the fact that it was Luke when it was the lone X-wing. I saw the hooded figure and I'm like, that's got to be Luke. No other Jedi would be this important, would halt the story to see him just breach the ship and walk alone through a ship like this.
Yeah.
Of course, it was confirmed by like green lightsaber. I'm like, that's 100% Luke, because it was like, if it was orange, it could have been Cal. If it was blue, it could have been Ezra, something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the green lightsaber is absolutely Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. So, as soon as I saw that X-wing enter, I was just like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing Luke Skywalker here. So, I'm not going to say I'm disappointed. That's not the right term. I know that narratively, Luke Skywalker coming to get Grogu was the most logical option. I know that I'm not disappointed, or no, I'm not mad. I'm a little disappointed just because out of the options we have been talking about for weeks, can it be Cal, Ezra, Quinlan Voss, Yaddle, Luke Skywalker, all along, like, Luke Skywalker was and is going to be the best option.
Yeah, because he's active right now. He's looking for more research. Canon wise, he's researching Jedi stuff.
Yeah,
He's about
and
to form his own school. So, like, obviously, Luke was the best choice out of where he is in canon and nostalgia reasons.
yeah. So, and I'm just saying they're like, yeah, we are doing Luke. And I'm only disappointed just because we finished the sequel trilogy about a year ago. And I liked that the Mandalorian was going to be separate from the rest of the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna see familiar elements, like narrative wise, familiar planets, familiar weapons or ideals like the Empire. But I was really excited for this show to take a step away from the Skywalker saga.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, right now, we don't know about Grogu's future, but I'm hoping that what we're doing now, instead of the Skywalker saga and Mandalorian being on parallel lines, they kind of leaned in, they tapped a single time, and now they're just separate again. Like they cross for the two Jedi, the Force sensitives, to meet for a second, and then they're separate for the rest of the way.
And I hope it is that way because I kind of got like a little taste in my, or the way I kind of feel that it's like when you go to a restaurant and you're like me and you don't want a lemon in your water and the waiter or waitress brings you that water and there's a lemon wedge in it, so you pull the lemon wedge out and you just get that slight hint of lemon in there. The rest of it's fine, the rest of it's water, but you get that little hint of lemon in there. That's kind of how I feel, just a little bit. And again, it's not terrible. I'm not saying this was a bad episode because of it. uh, I'm just a little disappointed that in the end it was Luke, but I'm not upset at how they did it because to me the important thing is if you're going to do the obvious and do the thing that everyone's expecting, do it right. Like that's why Endgame is one of my favorite Marvel movies. We know everyone's coming back. We know they're all jumping through portals or whatever.
Hmm.
They're gonna fix it, but they did it right, and it still made it fun and fantastic.
Yeah.
And everything they did with Luke, like father like son, Vader gets a cool scene where he gets to chop through people in a hallway. Luke got to do the same thing, and it was done fantastically.
Yeah, the mending and the callbacks to different, like Vader in the hallway, Vader before he gets all the, before he gets his legs chopped off and everything. There's one scene where he blocks a blaster bolt behind his back exactly the way that Anakin slash Vader did on Mustafar.
Mhm.
And like it's and that's why the Dark Troopers exist. Yes, because we love bringing things in from legends to make them canon. It's Favreau loves working with Iron Man type things. But also, if those were stormtroopers there, we could not have that scene. Luke does not slice through people like that.
Right.
It's
Right.
shown, especially if you look through the campaign of Battlefront 2. He is forced to kill stormtroopers in that game, and he hated it. He if he can absolutely go through the rest of his life without ever killing anyone else, unless he's absolutely forced to, he would love to. So
Mhm.
if these were like soldiers of any kind that weren't just droids, that scene wouldn't have been able to happen. So they had to bring in a formidable droid force in order to allow Luke to just wreck everything in that scene to show just how powerful he is, especially people who haven't really seen Star Wars much in the past, who are just kind of getting into it. And it's like, well, who's that awesome guy with the green lightsaber? Well, there's a whole trilogy about him. Go on.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
So Luke is there. Um, they let him, or Grogu is kind of signaling to Din. It's just like, yeah, open the doors. He's cool.
Mhm.
So opens up. Luke comes in, introduces himself. But before that, almost forgot. Gideon tries to kill himself,
So
but
Gideon takes shots at Bo-Katan, he takes shots at Grogu, and then almost shoots himself. But Bo-Katan has armor on, so she just kind of falls for a second. Din dives in front of Grogu to save him, and
mhm,
then Kara takes the butt of her gun and whacks Gideon's gun and head before he can do anything.
yeah. So I am very happy that Gideon's not dead yet. I
Yeah,
can't wait to see what he does. So Luke is basically just like, "Hey, I'm a Jedi," and Din looks at Grogu, and Din says to Luke, he's like, he doesn't want to go with you. And Luke's just like, he's asking permission. So I thought that was amazing. Just like
yeah.
this whole scene was phenomenally done. The CGI on Luke looked good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's still some uncanny valley. It is so difficult to replicate the way that a human face moves when it's talking,
Hmm.
because there's so many different things you have to map when you're doing that. But they did a really good job, and I'm glad they were able to actually use like de-aged Mark Hamill, and Hamill did some voice work as well in this scene because I don't think we're seeing Luke again. Because if we were seeing Luke more than once, I would really want a recast because I'm gonna get tired of looking at Uncanny Valley face for a while.
Hmm.
Um, but here in just this instance, I can look past it for character preservation.
So Din has a moment with Grogu where he takes his helmet off and looks, and Grogu sees his father figure's face for the first time. It's such a heartwarming scene, and Din's like, I'm gonna see you again. And then R2 rolls up. He's like, "What's up?"
Yeah, man. R2 pulled up, and I was like, oh, I totally forgot that he flies an X-wing with
Yeah,
R2.
yeah, I completely forget about that. I like to think that R2 knows Grogu. Like they know each other.
Yeah,
They've
I
been
was
around the temple.
seeing through the tears during the first watching, I was like, R2 definitely has to know Grogu. He
Yeah.
wouldn't. He could get excited because he recognizes the species, but like, I wouldn't think R2 to be like, oh boy, a calamari. Like if he sees more than just Akbar, like he's
Yeah.
gotta know. He's gotta know Grogu, which is an awesome world building, like lore from a lore standpoint. That R2, the droid of Anakin Skywalker, who's now flying with Anakin's son, knows Grogu, who is the same age and everything. So like, it's just really cool.
So Luke leaves with Grogu and R2. We see some final shots. I think the last shot of the episode is Koska, Bo-Katan, Kara, Gideon, and Din standing on the bridge of the light cruiser. Din with his helmet off in front of other people.
Yeah, so Din, helmet off, staring back at while they walk past, like back down the hallway. The final shot is Luke holding Grogu and R2 as the elevator door closes, and that's the episode. That's the season.
Well, that's what we think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about this, and then we'll talk about the epilogue. It really feels like they did just close a big book of the Mandalorian, where I was really wondering, like going into this season, like if Din finds a Jedi for Grogu at the end of the season, where are we going after this? And that was one thing that, as a fan, I felt just a tiny bit disappointed at the end. Is that all we know about the future of the show is that Bo and Din are going to have some problems. That's it. Like, and I've always, from day one of the show, I've always thought, is Din going to be involved with retaking Mandalore? Because he's the Mandalorian. Like, how long are we going to do this bounty hunter outlaw thing? Mm-hmm. And it's really feeling like that timeline may have just accelerated, unless they come up with some other big story that they can do for a couple seasons. I've always imagined like the last season or two would be about Din helping Mandalore recover.
Yeah.
So we have no idea how many seasons are being made. I mean, they're making season 3. They already confirmed season 3 a while ago. Mm-hmm. I like to think they're in pre-production on season 4 as well. Like they're writing it out, getting directors, getting writers, stuff like that.
I mean, with how absolutely successful The Mandalorian is, I don't think like they've already taken a massive step and taken away their most amazing merchandising opportunity in history. They've already removed it from the show.
Yeah,
they wouldn't end the show here.
Mm-hmm.
There are theories that something that we'll talk about in just a second will be season 3, which we can dive into in a second once we talk about it. But I don't know. There was already something set up at the end of this episode. I don't think they'll just forget that storyline.
No, I think Din said it. Like he's like, I'm gonna see you again, Grogu. So I'm glad to see that, or glad to hear that Din will see Grogu again before Grogu probably gets maliciously murdered by Kylo Ren in about 20 years.
I think he's gonna get out before he gets murdered by Kylo Ren. Don't talk about him getting murdered.
Are you telling me Grogu's gonna get lucky twice and survive 2 temple burnings?
Well, yeah, I'll say so. That'd be fun.
I like to think that as well. But
yeah,
that was my favorite joke from this episode going around. It's just like that awkward moment when you realize that Kylo Ren probably killed Grogu. I'm like, oh. So, all right, let's talk about the epilogue then. So, didn't see this coming. I just saw, with the credits, I was just like, there's like 7 minutes left. What are they doing here? So, we see the freaking Bib Fortuna is kind of running the Hutt clan based out of Tatooine.
He looks like a Hutt now. Oh my god, he is so large. That's
going to be really awkward if that chair gives everybody that sits in it an extra 200 pounds. So it's going to be really awkward to see fat Boba. So Fennec and Boba, Yeah, Bib Fortuna gets murdered by Fennec and Boba. We get this awesome shot of Boba sitting in the throne on Tatooine. So he's like now the crime king of Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest announcement was the Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021.
Yeah.
Now the controversy behind this is that people are just like, is this season 3 of Mando? I don't think it is.
I think it's a limited series that leads into season 3 of Mando.
Yeah.
Because it'll like depending on how many episodes it is, we could have some beforehand. This could be an ongoing series as well, where we get a few episodes before Mando season 3 starts, which it starts on Christmas of next year.
Right.
So they've got 3-4 weeks to run a few episodes of this before Mando season 3 starts.
Yeah.
So like I think it's gonna be like another series that helps build the lore behind some stuff, and also we just want to see more Boba Fett.
Oh, of course. Yeah, so I mean, I'm very excited for this, and yeah, I think you lined it up pretty well. You know, they just didn't phrase it well, especially because they didn't talk about the Book of Boba Fett at the Disney Plus investor call, which I figured is because we're gonna see something like this at the end of this season that they didn't want to spoil.
It was rumored that there's a Boba Fett stuff filming. And we didn't see it at the Investor Day, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's part of another show. If you go back, listen to the episode that we filmed right before the investor call happened, we kind of talked about the Boba Fett show a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, we just talked about a show that isn't happening anymore. But no, it's happening. So all that information that we had talked about is still valid.
Yay. Yeah, we're still valid.
My favorite thing about the epilogue, though, or the post-credit scene, the most important thing we learned, sarcasm, was we got subtitles for Bib Fortuna talking, which means that we now know what McClunky means.
What does it mean?
Apparently it means this will be the end of you, or like you're gonna die. Because actually, apparently, of course, McClunky comes up from the Disney Plus version of New Hope right before the Greedo and Han shootout. Greedo says McClunky before they both, before Greedo dies. Han shot first. But also, apparently, it's first heard in episode 1 when, right before they go pod racing, Sebulba works in McClunky into his speech towards Anakin. So, yeah. We learn what McClunky means, and I guess less importantly, I guess we're getting more Boba Fett content. But
yeah, of course. So, overall, this was not my favorite episode of the season, and I think I definitely enjoyed the season 1 finale more than season 2.
Mm-hmm.
This was still a great episode. Had some highs, had some little lows, but overall, I thought it was a great ending or end cap to the Grogu story. Basically, it really sounds like I'm saying he died. He didn't, but this was a great final chapter in the story of Din and Grogu. I'm excited for season 3. I'm mad that we have no idea, no concept as to what season 3 will be. But then again, we have what looks like 6 Marvel shows coming in 2021 that will keep us busy.
Yeah, we'll have some content between now and Mando season 3. Now, if it's just Star Wars, I think the next thing we'll get for just Star Wars will be the Book of Boba Fett. So it's going to be a year until we get more Star Wars information.
No. Don't forget, we got Bad Batch coming in March.
Wait, Bad Batch starts in March?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay.
Yeah. No. You have to keep that in now because it's pretty tough to keep track of what's coming in 2021. I hope someone makes a roadmap to what's coming in 2021.
Yeah, man, that'll be really helpful.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we'll get Bad Batch in March, which means also we get Falcon Winter Soldier also in March, and then in between we get WandaVision in January into February. So oh man, content.
We got Loki in April, I think.
Yeah, April. Yeah, I think so.
Either way, we'll stay busy. But do you have anything else? If not, I'll wrap it up.
Oh, when do you think we'll see Grogu next?
I honestly would be surprised if we don't see him in season 3.
So I'm thinking that we might see him sometime soon. For example, like if we see him in Obi-Wan Kenobi because Kenobi saved him, something like that. We might see him soon to see who saves him from Order 66.
Yeah.
But past that, I really don't think we're going to see him anytime. So we might see him if we get specific dedicated scenes to Grogu training with Luke. We might see him if we get that in season 3. But if we don't get that and we're following Din to the point where we aren't allowed to see how Grogu's progressing, we won't see him until at least season 4. So it'll be like an actual, like in real life, at least 2 years to let it set in, to let him develop off screen. And also between seasons, there are time jumps. I'm thinking we're now in like 10 ABY, not 9 ABY where the show started. So depending on how many time jumps we get, we could see Grogu at the point where he's able to talk as well. He's old enough to where he's a trained Jedi, like a Padawan, maybe even a knight, depending on if we are using that same kind of terminology, and can maybe talk as well.
I will also say there are rumors that Grogu will appear in the Bad Batch. If he does, it'll probably be the Bad Batch finds out how, or we see who rescued him, which would be kind of cool to tie live action back down to animation. There is also one thing I want to bring up. Our predictions for this final episode where they go after Gideon, it looks bad, Jedi shows up, we got who directed it wrong. Well, we didn't really have any predictions except for it wasn't Peyton Reed. We did get wrong what we would see in the final shot. We were incorrect that we thought we would see Thrawn. I think they're just saying that for Ahsoka, and that's totally okay. Yeah,
I pulled my prediction away from Thrawn. We didn't like go back and readdress it really well. To my knowledge, but I no longer predicted Thrawn after we got the announcement of Ahsoka's show. But I did get the main team more or less correct, even though we were going off of the fact that Koska would not be returning. But of course, she lied. So I was 5 for 6 in that team.
And 2 things I want to say before we close out. First of all, Mark Hamill's hilarious on Twitter. He was just like, when that episode came out, he was just like, anyone watching any good TV recently? And then I think it was this morning or yesterday, he was just like, honestly, I'm so proud of Lucasfilm and the team that made this episode for keeping this under wraps for about a year. They've been talking about this for a year, and we had no notion that this would be happening.
The only thing that ever happened with, like, because if you follow certain video games, stuff like that, a lot of times video games will leak a lot of information. People are like, here's information, you know everything beforehand. The only thing we ever had to deal with this season of Mandalorian was Episode 5, The Jedi, being leaked, and also rumors that Pedro Pascal was getting angry because his face wasn't in there much, but I don't think those were true anyway.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, so fake rumors and one single not final episode leaked with like the information. So I mean they kept it down really well.
Yeah, and so far most of this podcast, besides our episode about the Disney investor call, has revolved around episode recaps for The Mandalorian. So we truly hope that you all enjoyed us on this beginning to our journey. As you've heard from us, there's a lot of stuff coming in 2021, and we're going to do our best to stay on top of this and record and do something that we love. Yeah. So we hope that if you've listened so far, you've enjoyed, and we look forward to having you all with us as we venture into other pieces of content and other fandoms. So
yeah, this show has, of course, revolved around The Mandalorian, but as soon as we're done with our little recap and ranking next week, it's off to new horizons.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for listening. This has been the R&S Podcast starring Rudolph and Santa. So I hope you all have a happy holidays, and we'll talk to you in about a week.
Yeah, you know, as Santa flies past some of those planets in Star Wars, he sometimes thinks, man, the grass could always be greener on Alderaan.
It sure can. But you know what? There's no green grass on Hoth, where he's based out of. Good night, everybody.
See ya.